as those of the accuser and must be respected. A Senate hearing is intended to focus on legislation and broad issues of policy. That's what they usually do. But a hearing is not a good place to protect anyone's rights or to deal at all with matters of such sensitivity. Hearings are poorly suited to determining specific questions of fact, of truth, and falsehood. Perhaps something good may yet come from this terrible episode. If the national debate which it has generated leads to changed attitudes, leads to a process where serious charges can be evaluated in a more fair and less controversial way, to a society where the words of women have the same weight as the words of men, to a society where the workplace will finally be free of all discrimination, whether by race, by sex, or in any other form. Mr. President, I ask the members of the Senate to remain in their seats during the vote in accordance with the rules of the Senate. This is an important vote, and I ask that decorum be maintained. Mr. President, if the yeas and nays been ordered. President, I request the yeas and nays.
Is there a sufficient second? There is a sufficient second.
Right.
Before the question is put to the Senate, the chair will remind the galleries that expressions of approval or disapproval are prohibited. The question is on the confirmation of the nomination of Clarence Thomas of Georgia to be an Associate Justice of the United States Supreme Court. The clerk will call the roll. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, members of the Senate, this will be the last vote this evening. Under a unanimous consent agreement previously obtained, there will be a vote tomorrow on the veto override on the unemployment compensation bill and possibly other votes on appropriations conference reports. Those remain to be worked out. Thank my colleagues.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Adams.
No.
Mr. Akaka. Mr. Baucus. Mr. Benson. Mr. Biden. Mr. Bingaman. Mr. Bond. Mr. Boren. Mr. Bradley. Mr. Breaux. Mr. Brown. Mr. Bryan. Mr. Bumpers. Mr. Burdick. Mr. Burns. Mr. Byrd. Mr. Chafee. Mr. Coates. Mr. Cochran.
Aye.
Mr. Cohen.
Aye.
Mr. Conrad.
No.
Mr. Craig.
Aye.
Mr. Cranston. Mr. D'Amato. Mr. Danforth. Mr. Daschle. Mr. DeConcini. Mr. Dixon.
Aye.
Mr. Dodd.
No.
Mr. Dole. Mr. Domenici. Mr. Durenberger. Mr. Exon. Mr. Ford.
No.
Mr. Fowler. Mr. Garn. Mr. Glenn. Mr. Gore, Mr. Gorton, Mr. Graham of Florida, Mr. Graham of Texas, Mr. Grassley,
Aye.
Mr. Harkin, Mr. Hatch, Mr. Hatfield, Mr. Heflin,
No.
Mr. Helms,
Aye.
Mr. Hollings,
Aye.
Mr. Inouye,
No.
Mr. Jeffords, Mr. Johnston,
Aye.
Mrs. Casaubon, Mr. Caston, Mr. Kennedy, Mr. Carey of Nebraska, Mr. Carey of Massachusetts, Mr. Cole, Mr. Lautenberg, Mr. Leahy, Mr. Levin, Mr. Lieberman, Mr. Lott, Mr. Lugar,
Aye.
Mr. Mack,
Aye.
Mr. McCain, Mr. McConnell, Mr. Metzenbaum,
No.
Ms. Mikulski, Mr. Mitchell, Mr. Moynihan, Mr. Murkowski,
Aye.
Mr. Nichols, Mr. Nunn, Mr. Packwood, Mr. Pell, Mr. Pressler,
Aye.
Mr. Pryor, Mr. Reed, Mr. Regal, Mr. Robb, Mr. Rockefeller, Mr. Roth, Mr. Rudman, Mr. Sanford, Mr. Sarbanes, Mr. Sasser, Mr. Seymour, Mr. Shelby, Mr. Simon, Mr. Simpson, Mr. Smith, Mr. Spector, Mr. Stevens, Mr. Sims, Mr. Thurmond, Mr. Wallop, Mr. Warner, Mr. Wellstone, Mr. Worth, Mr. Wofford. Senators voting in the affirmative: Bond, Boren, Breaux, Brown, Burns, Chafee, Coates, Cochran, Cohen, Craig, D'Amato, Danforth, DeConcini, Dixon, Dole, Domenici, Durenberger, Exon, Fowler, Garn, Gorton, Graham of Texas, Grassley, Hatch, Hatfield, Helms, Hollings, Johnston, Cassabaum, Caston, Lott, Lugar, Mack, McCain, McConnell, Murkowski, Nichols, Nunn, Pressler, Robb, Roth, Rudman, Seymour, Shelby, Simpson, Smith, Specter, Stevens, Sims, Thurmond, Wallop, and Warner. Mr. Glenn.
No.
Mr. Lieberman. Senators voting in the negative: Adams, Akaka, Baucus, Benson, Biden, Bingaman, Bradley, Bryan, Bumpers, Burdick, Byrd, Conrad, Cranston, Daschle, Dodd, Ford, Glenn, Gore, Graham of Florida, Heflin, Inouye, Jeffords, Kennedy, Kerry of Nebraska, Kerry of Massachusetts, Cole, Lautenberg, Leahy, Levin, Lieberman, Metzenbaum, Mikulski, Mitchell, Moynihan, Packwood, Pell, Pryor, Reed, Regal, Rockefeller, Sanford, Sarbanes, Sasser, Simon, Wellstone, Worth, and Wofford. Mr. Harkin.
No.
Mr. Harkin, no.
On this vote, the yeas are 52 and the nays are 48. The nomination of Clarence Thomas of Georgia to be Associate Justice of the United States Supreme Court is hereby confirmed.
I move to reconsider the vote.
I move to lay that on the table.
Without objection, the motion table is agreed to.
Mr. President, I suggest the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Adams.
Ensure order.
And so these 8 days of October drama have come to an end. And for Clarence Thomas, the nightmare is over. He has been confirmed to take his seat on the Supreme Court, the 106th Justice of the United States. He will succeed the legendary Thurgood Marshall. This, the closest confirmation vote this century for any justice to serve on the Supreme Court. Vice President Dan Quayle, the presiding officer, just in case his vote was needed. But as you just heard and saw, the vote was 52 to 48, and so the Vice President's tally was not really needed. The opponents made a real fight of it, but they just could not prevail over the argument that Clarence Thomas deserved the benefit of the doubt. And what we've had today, Nina, is certainly one of the most riveting and dramatic votes that we've seen in the Senate's in our time, and it came down to just 4 votes.
Absolutely, and I think it's even closer than Clarence Thomas's supporters had thought today. At one point, we thought there might be 54 votes for the nominee, but it really went right down to the line, 52 to 48 for confirmation. and Clarence Thomas will become the 106th justice to serve on the nation's highest court. Only the second African American to serve in the court's history. This has been a remarkable battle, a remarkable event, a remarkable vote.
And for Clarence Thomas, of course, he's only 43 years of age. He underwent the ordeal of 3 days of extraordinary hearings. He and his supporters fought back gamely, and they won in the face of serious charges of sexual harassment that were directed at him. And now, of course, he can rest. He can sleep peacefully tonight, knowing that he has won this battle.
In the end, there were 3 votes changed from those who had declared, the 2 senators from Nevada, Bryan and Reed, and the 3rd vote, Lieberman of Connecticut.
Norm Ornstein, a longtime congressional scholar, congressional watcher, has been sitting here patiently following it with us for these 8 hours, Norm. Were there any surprises in the vote?
Well, other than the 3 who changed, we started the day with 41 firm Republicans of the 43 we knew, and at the time that this was delayed, the count was 41 to 41 with the rest undecided. It has always been the case that Thomas needed 9 Democrats, basically, and there was a pool of about 20. In the end, it became clear as the day began that he had probably 10 or 11 at least, and we expected a couple of more, those who would stick with him. There wasn't any great surprise, and frankly, Paul, by the time we got to mid-afternoon, both sides knew that we had at least the 50 votes necessary, and some of the starch went out of this debate. The incredible tension that was there throughout this process in the last week wasn't quite there anymore. We had senators trying to justify the behavior of the Senate, the behavior of the process, and their votes, with a number of them, of course, going out in 1992. And some of the votes that were really the ones on the cusp here are people who were up in 1992. Several Democrats voted for Clarence Thomas. Several who were up in 1992 voted against, and it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, too.
I think many senators saw it as Democrat Dennis DeConcini of Arizona did. He called it a case of troubling contradictions. And in the light of that, he, like so many other senators, decided to cast their vote for Clarence Thomas and confirmation.
As the hearings began in this last stage, Joe Biden, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, a Democrat, said the benefit of the doubt should go to Judge Thomas. Not everybody felt that way, obviously, but that was certainly a sentiment. And there was certainly a sentiment, as we saw throughout. We saw this great focus on the rules of the Senate at a time when most others were worrying about these charges. They were greatly troubled by this leak and the way in which all this began. That weighed in as a factor here, too. And let's face it, Paul, the fact that we had a series of polls that showed throughout the course of this hearing process that Americans basically divided 2 to 1 for Clarence Thomas mattered here, too. The question of whether votes were going to change, the public reaction to all of this had some bearing. All of that means this close vote, but the fact is he's on the court now, and a year from now we won't remember the numbers, at least most of us won't. Other things will have intervened.
And we heard a great deal of talk today about the political process, the majority leader, the minority leader, many other senators saying that something has to be done to change the process.
A number stood up to try and defend the process and said 102 years and so on of going through this. But the fact is we know that the Senate is a loser in all of this. The American people looked at this and didn't see the Senate coming out well. There was one column in the New York Times today that said we've had a 3-day seminar on why we need term limitations. It's going to be a cry out there. They're going to have to put some attention to this aspect of it. I'm not sure there are many things they can do to change the formal nature of the confirmation process. That's not the problem here. It is much more the informal politics of character assassination that's become a fact of life now, that involves a lot of actors inside and outside the Senate, where you're going to have to get a lot of voluntary compliance. And frankly, I don't think we're going to see this toned down after this bitter fight and close vote. More than likely, the next time we have another one of these very difficult political struggles, it's going to be even greater. Both sides are going to say, you did that to us, boy, we're going to come back and do it to you. So we've got some more rough times to go through. This doesn't end it.
Nina, let me ask you, since you cover the Supreme Court, what's your evaluation now after all of this? How do you think it affects Clarence Thomas, and how do you think it will affect the court?
Well, I think that's really the big question this evening as we look to the future. Clarence Thomas has a difficult task in front of him. He goes to the court having had these suspicions, at least, raised about him. He's overcome. He gave a dramatic and wonderful performance before this committee, a performance that convinced the Senate and the American public that he should be confirmed. Nonetheless, those suspicions remain. And for example, when there's a case before the court that involves one of these groups that he attacked with such fury in his testimony, that he said he believed had concocted this story in order to defeat him, will he disqualify himself? Or if he doesn't, supposing the group loses, what will be the reaction to that? One of the things that we have going for us in this country is the notion that the Supreme Court is an honest broker of disputes. Now, people disagree with individual justices as to their philosophy, but there is no current justice sitting who has had these sorts of questions raised about him. It may well be that after a few years, we'll all forget about them. It may well be that Clarence Thomas, given his background and his strength and his fortitude, will demonstrate to the country that he is to be completely trusted in this job. But it's something that's now up to him and to the court to demonstrate, and it's difficult. I don't know what he's going to do about disqualifying himself in certain kinds of disputes.
And of course, speaking of trust, we heard Senator George Mitchell, the Democratic leader, say in his final speech that Clarence Thomas not only would be confirmed, he predicted that, but then he went on to say that this means that Clarence Thomas would vote to overturn Roe versus Wade, that this would be a crucial vote against the pro-choice position. And Gloria Borger, you also have been watching today's proceedings as a reporter for U.S. News and World Report. And I think the Majority Leader's final speech underscored, while he was decrying how political this has become, at the same time he was trying to capitalize in a political way on the confirmation itself, wasn't he?
Yes, I mean, he said that his vote against George Mitchell was a vote against disqualifications. He said, I'm sorry, excuse me, his vote against Clarence Thomas was a vote against Clarence Thomas because he felt he was not qualified to be on the Supreme Court. He said that this issue had, of course, added to his doubts about the nominee, but that the reason he voted against him was because he felt that he should not be there, and one of those issues, of course, is abortion. And I think that underlying this debate, why we didn't see very many people change their mind, only the three that Nina mentioned, is because they were saying, we don't think he's any more qualified than we thought he was a week ago, or we think he's just as qualified as we thought he was a week ago.
He also referred to the race issue playing a factor in what happened.
Yes, I think that that's something, obviously, the Democrats feel that Clarence Thomas took advantage of. And they're going to play that up. You can be sure we're going to have a debate over the Civil Rights Bill, which is going to be very interesting in the upcoming months in the United States Senate, because this is something that John Danforth, Clarence Thomas's mentor, wants very desperately, and he's fighting the White House with. And you're going to see a real fight in the Senate, and this time the Democrats are going to be on the side of Jack Danforth, not against him.
One of the things that struck me today was that many of those who were put in the wavering category, in the undecided category, those senators seemed to fall back almost person by person on the argument that there is a presumption of innocence here. I thought Illinois Democrat Alan Dixon put it well when he said, we must preserve and protect that presumption.
Well, you know, there are a lot of senators on that floor who have experienced the white heat of unpleasant publicity and personal scrutiny. And I think there was a certain identification with the position that Clarence Thomas finds himself in, or found himself in, of being unfairly accused in the view of some senators. And so I think there was a particularly, I don't know quite what the word is, but emotional tug to say, look, just because we're in public life doesn't mean you can pillory us to death unfairly. And we're going to cast our vote for a process that won't tolerate that.
Politically, I also think that that's the easiest argument to offer, the argument that makes a lot of sense to a public that was divided on this when you see a plurality of men and women both supporting Clarence Thomas. If you offer that argument to your constituents, it's going to make a lot of sense.
We didn't hear a lot of eloquent speeches today, I think, but we did hear one earlier in the day from Robert Byrd, the senator from West Virginia, who spoke out strongly against confirmation. And Senator Byrd said that he had watched all 3 days of the extraordinary sessions of the Judiciary Committee, and he had found Anita Hill, the young woman from Oklahoma, who brought the sexual harassment charge. He said that he had found her a thoughtful, reflective, and truthful witness, and he spoke for an hour and 20 minutes, and that was one of the highlights, even though he was not on the winning side.
What was interesting is he told us that privately he had decided, he had the speech on his desk, he decided to vote for her, and then he decided to change his mind based on the testimony that he saw. Nobody else came to the Senate floor and said that as bravely as he did, because he said, look, I changed my mind.
And he also said he was the first senator on the floor who said, I believe her. He just said that, I believe her. That's what he said really was his reason for changing his mind.
And on the other side, we had John Danforth, loyal to the end, fighting very hard for confirmation for Clarence Thomas.
And in the end, of course, Paul, I think really that the American public and the Senate chose to believe Clarence Thomas more than Anita Hill, and that is why he will become the 106th justice to serve on the Supreme Court.
Well, it's all over. One of the most dramatic and compelling weeks ever on Capitol Hill. Clarence Thomas will take his seat on the Supreme Court. He was confirmed by a 52-48 vote just a few minutes ago. And Nina and I would like to wind up by thanking all of our supporting cast, researchers, directors, producers, all of our special guests, Gloria Borger, Norm Ornstein, and everybody who helped us with this special PBS NPR coverage, which we brought to you for what we believe was a public service. With Nina Totenberg, I'm Paul Duke on Capitol Hill.
Funding for this program was provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by the financial support of viewers like you.
This is PBS. Mick Jagger's an emperor who can't get no satisfaction until Barbara Hershey warms his stone-cold soul.
The song has gone straight to my heart.
Mick Jagger stars in The Nightingale on Fairy Tale Theater.
Saturday night at 6 here on OPB.
Next time on Nova, the Dead Sea Scrolls. What secrets do these ancient texts hold? Will they dramatically change the religious history for Jews, for Christians? Controversy has shrouded these documents right down to the present day.
The fragments, as they came from K4, were a mixed jumble. They were like this.
Will we ever unlock the secrets of the Dead Sea Scrolls? That's next time on Nova.
Tonight at 8 here on OPB.